Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And today we've been to see one battle after another, which is Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film. So we saw the last couple on the podcast, Licorice Pizza and Phantom Thread. We saw both of those with my brother. We didn't see this with my brother. He'll be going to see it, I'm sure, in every format that it's available in. We've seen it in IMAX Digital. It's been filmed on VistaVision, which is this kind of 60-year-old film process, which is similar to IMAX, where the film runs horizontally through the camera instead of vertically, which gives you a different size frame to play with, gives you more detail is able to come out of the image that way. So Bruce Willis did this, and we went down to London to see it in that way. You're going to go and see this in VistaVision when you can. It's based on a Thomas Pynchon novel, Vineland, which is from 1990, I think. Thomas Pynchon's still with us in his 80s. It's Paul Thomas Anderson's second film based on a Pynchon novel, Inherent Vice, so clearly he vibes with this author, you know. And it's, by a long way, Paul Thomas Anderson's most expensive film. Every other film he's done has been in the, apart from this first couple, so they're cheap. Then he gets into basically the $20 to $30 million range for most of his career, making very impressive looking films on those budgets. You know, There Will Be Blood and The Master and things looked incredible, but that's the kind of range we're talking about. Licorice Pizza actually was his most expensive before this at $40 million.
Right.
I mean, when you think about the kind of, I think we talked about it on that podcast, in fact, you know, you think about the kind of set design and what the work had to go into to make that, then despite the story being what it was, you can see where the money was spent, you know. This, you're looking at like $130 to $175 million. That's the kind of range that people have been talking about. It's the first time since Boogie Nights that Paul Thomas Anderson has agreed to screen test. Because, you know, there's a big budget involved here, and I guess it's like making the studio happy and so on and so forth. And from what I understand, there's some 8 to 10 minutes he voluntarily cut out. You know, based on screen tests, keeping the studio happy, that sort of thing. So there's been some level of studio involvement reported here that you don't normally get from reports of his films. I think it's kind of, it's of all the films he's made, you might say it's the most, how do you say it, aimed at pleasing an audience?
It's the most entertaining by far. And I think maybe this is something to underline. It's a really entertaining film, right? It's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and it felt like it just moved by. I mean, I didn't notice the time at all. It's very funny about very serious things. And I loved it. I think, you know, it's my favorite of his films so far, you know, and maybe his best. I'd have to think a little bit more and, you know, think more about the film. But my first impression is that it's his best film. It's actually the best film I've seen since, you know, or maybe it's even better than The Brutalist, which was also shot in VistaVision. So I you know, I hope everyone goes to see it, and, you know, we'll talk about maybe at least why I think why in a moment, really.
Yeah. So I had a very good time. The film took its time to grow on me, though. I did feel the time passing. You know, there were points where I was going like, I mean, I was checking my, you know, my phone for the time at kind of regular intervals, it turned out. So like I checked it, and at one point I checked it and went, wow, we're only half an hour in. You know, it felt like a lot of time had been spent.
Yeah.
A lot of story had been told, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
To me, it whizzed by.
I was
really
surprised that, you know, we were only half an hour in. It felt more like an hour to me.
Let me intervene there, yeah, because I just want to disagree and give you reasons why I felt, you know, for me it was immediately interesting. I mean, I thought for me it was immediately interesting because, you know, we're in the middle of kind of Project 2025 with Trump in power. The film, I suppose, is meant to be set in a kind of a near future or parallel universe, but it actually feels almost like documentary in what it's presenting, right? It feels like all those ICE raids. The only thing that's that seems fictional at the moment is armed resistance to what is happening. Yeah, what is happening is almost instantly legible. And I was fascinated with what the film was presenting, right? Right from the beginning, really. And aside from that, what I found instantly ingratiating was the actors. Yeah, kind of, you know, you're waiting to see what they look like and kind of and what they do. You know, I was fascinated with Leonardo DiCaprio at the beginning playing, I don't know, for a lack of a better word, dumb. Yeah, they're very...
Well, yeah, it occurred to me right from the start, he's not that bright.
Exactly.
And he plays it well.
And it's very difficult to do.
Rather like his role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, had a similar level of intelligence.
Yes, exactly.
And kind of like a willingness to engage with the world, but not quite an ability to in some ways.
Yeah. So that instantly intrigued. And also, the woman who plays Perfidia, Teyana Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfidia Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Who I just thought, she's a fucking star. I mean, she had the most interesting face. The film sexualizes her from Sean Penn's point of view. But, she's extraordinarily beautiful. She has this look that was just fascinating because she's got false eyelashes, but she's also got one hair coming out of the eyelash like beetles,
right.
Like a beetle antenna, right? So just to say that during that whole period of setting up the story and so on, all of these things kind of fascinated me, and I immediately thought, this is a serious film.
Mm.
It's a film about serious things, and yet it's kind of filmed so loosely, and funny, and some of it is like way out playful, really.
Yeah.
So
this is something that I think Paul Thomas Anderson has grown into himself doing in a way, because remember when he started, he seemed so formal.
Yes.
Like the form of the film was of paramount importance. Like those long takes and the camera moving and everything seemed like there were show-off shots. You think about the kind of the signature show-off shot of his, I suppose, would be the opening of Boogie Nights. But I'm thinking more of like Magnolia,
sure.
which was full of these things, and the whole thing was designed to orchestrate and build towards big effects in formal ways. And in his last few films, it's not like he doesn't sort of do that.
He still does that.
But he, as he loose is the word, he's much happier to make his films look much more sort of quote unquote traditional. I mean, that's big quotation marks around that. But like they're showing off to you less visually in formal ways.
Traditional is the wrong word because so few people have the skills that are manifest in this film. I mean, some of the things that he does I thought were quite amazing, really. At the beginning, kind of, he's using all these kind of reflections, dissolves. Yeah, it's just full of so many kind of different techniques to get the point across. But then he also uses a lot of handheld camera, right?
Yeah, so like he'll be happy to kind of snatch a shot if he needs to. He's happy to cut into a shot that you think about Magnolia, he wouldn't be cutting into those long takes in that film. Like they were designed to stand as the pieces. And here it's like if he needs to, he will cut, he'll go to reaction, all that kind of stuff, because that's what just makes the thing flow. He'd never really done action like this. He's never really done action at all. He's kind of done, again, kind of orchestrated set pieces, like the oil derrick on fire in There Will Be Blood, for instance. It's not like he doesn't have a familiarity with that kind of thing. But here he has car chases, car chases and gunfights.
Which are beautiful. And, the one at the end has this almost experimental vibe with, the car going through these hills and you see, but you don't see. And it's almost like...
It's really good.
The role of the hills itself kind of becomes, a formal element in the film. It's both kind of beautiful and suspenseful and exciting.
Yeah, you see. Yeah, I mean, they must have it's the kind of thing where you imagine, like, when they were location scouting, they found that road and went, okay, I can imagine a set piece around this rolling road. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just the way it looks. And then it's not just used for the kind of the tension of you see the car, you don't see the car, you see the car, and the chase continues. But also it's used by the character. When she's out of sight, she parks her car, and that causes the fella to crash. So, like, the character's able to use it too, which is great. It's a great way for that scene to end as well, that chase to end. I mean... I was surprised by that and the other car chase, how just how well they worked and how interesting and exciting they were. And in fact, so this is like when I say the film kind of livened up for me after an hour or so. This is about when the powers that be have found their way to Leonardo DiCaprio and Chase Infinity, father and daughter, and they suddenly have to flee, and shit just starts going all down very, very quickly. And so much of it was the music. Johnny Greenwood's score, which is every time
it's so beautiful.
It's this piano that's very light, right? It's not like ramping up shitloads of tension and drama. It's just keeping a pace going. It's like ding 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 ding, and with little bits of flourishes on top of that. But it's very sparse, very light, but it just keeps going. It's also playful, like it has that playful. It's a lightly played piano that sets a tone, sets a pace, and keeps that tone light while it's happening. You know, this could be very dramatic, like, oh, because we've got to get away from the cops, the militarized police are coming after us, but it keeps it light.
I loved also the selection of songs. They're just kind of so beautifully chosen, really. You know, so it goes from the Shirelles to, you know, Michael Jackson to Ella Fitzgerald. And at every moment, it feels incredibly appropriate. You know, some of the Latin music almost brought tears to my eyes, really. Yeah, particularly when it's used at the end, when there's a moment where the father, who's not really the father, and the daughter reconcile, or the father who is the father in spite of not being a biological father, find each other. And you have that song, Perfidia, come on. It was just like so hushed and powerful, really, so beautiful.
Some of the trouble that I had with the opening was, and I was thinking about this, I was thinking maybe this is just completely not the point, right? So I was thinking, I wish there was more specificity about what the fight is. Okay, this is a kind of very generalised left-wing militant revolutionary group that is doing left-wing militant revolutionary things. They're blowing things up, they're saying, you know, phone calls, we're going to blow up your bank, we're going to blow up whatever. They're releasing detained immigrants right at the start, which is the one really sort of concrete thing you see them doing. It's kind of it's kind of a montage after that, right? It's generalised sort of revolutionary activity, and who they're fighting against and the reasons why is not really, you know, if it were a Trump or something, there's no particular character like that they're saying this is the.
Well, my God, what is it? The White Christmas, the order.
Well, they don't know about them.
Sorry?
They don't know about them. We know about them. They don't know who they are.
Well, but they know that they're living in an authoritarian fascist state.
Okay, but
that's all you need to know.
No, but the point, but we don't even know. They don't even talk about that. It's very generalized.
It doesn't matter.
It does. It's very.
It doesn't
matter.
matter.
Well, to me, it did. Right. Okay. It's very, very generalized revolutionary talk, and then the people who they are fighting are also very generally expressed to us. They're just kind of military people.
They're fascists.
Yeah, but like it's very easy to take. Which is what, you know, when they start doing the sign-countersign thing on the phone so they know who they're talking to. One of the codes is the revolution will not be televised by Gil Scott-Heron. And, you know, every time I hear that, I think, like, it's so easy to write something like that. And actually, if you're not, it's really general. I don't like it.
I like it.
And that's the trouble I had here. But then
if it was so easy, you'd have more songs written like that, whereas actually that's the only one you know.
Yeah. It's the only one they've used. But they say it so much. It's what, 50, 60 years old? And where's the revolution?
And it's still, you know, happening. And actually, you know, there's been many revolutions all over the world, really.
But here's the thing that I think, well, maybe this is the point, because the film is called One Battle After Another. It's about this continual thing. You've got the Perfidia character talks about, like, she comes from a long line, or her mother says she comes from a long line of revolutionaries. Like, revolution is like the family business, and so maybe it is. I think the film might be kind of slightly mocking that idea that, like, it's just like revolution is just the thing that keeps going on.
I didn't read it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that the film does so well is dramatize the question of race in the United States as a kind of a structural oppression, and very vividly voiced, right? And there are references to the Underground Railroad, you know, the Topman references. So I think, you know, if you're a black person in the United States, then of course the revolution has been ongoing and has been going for a long time. I mean, you know, if you're kind of a white person, you might not be aware of it, yeah, but kind of resistance to white supremacy in the U.S. is an ongoing thing with a tradition of at least 200 years old. And you're now kind of seeing it dramatized in all kinds of films, yeah? Kind of, you know, what was the latest one we saw, the vampire one with...
Sinners.
Yes. You know, that's kind of one aspect of it. So I didn't have any problems with any of that. I thought it was completely legible to me and completely understandable.
Yeah. I do think there's an element of kind of lightly mocking it, because saying, like, you know, revolution should have purposes and causes and endpoints, and this just is an idea of just it keeps on going. We just keep on revolving.
Well, the problems don't get resolved, or they get resolved momentarily, and then kind of, you know, you would have thought that a lot of the problems that the American society is facing kind of were resolved with the Civil Rights Act in the 60s. Yeah, and for a while things got better, and now they're worse than ever. So, Anyway, one of the things that I liked very much about the film as well was the way that it takes on board all kinds of contemporary debates, right? I was very interested in that moment where uh, Leonardo DiCaprio's daughter is going to the prom, and all of a sudden it's like, who's coming, and do I call him or they or them, and the discussion between the father and the daughter, was so kind of interesting and kind of topical, and for me just an illustration of how the film kind of absorbs so many contemporary debates about the various aspects of society, and dramatizes kind of them again very vividly. Yeah, I think the casting is so important in that. I thought Benicio del Toro and the whole kind of Latin American plight, in the film so resonates with ICE. The depiction of the tracker, who claims to be Mexican, but according, to the authorities, is really indigenous. Again, kind of, symbolizes. I thought it was so interesting, that the Native American is alone and singular, and the Latin Americans are part of like this whole kind of community.
Well, particularly the Benicio del Toro character, who's a karate teacher, is a community leader in a big way, and he finds out that Leonardo DiCaprio is this old revolutionary from this famous group, the French 75, and I didn't know if he was also would also turn out to be some kind of, but no, he's just a community leader. They have their own, they have that tunnel in the apartment block where they live, and you think, okay, so there's something going on with this guy and these people, and why do they have this, and are they organised and all that kind of thing? But it's not really explained. It's just it's like another arm of counter.
They're fighting another form of oppression.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why, to me, the film is really so great. I think had this film been released in the 70s and 80s, it would be one of those films that set the discussion for the nation, for the next month, which is what used to happen. You'd have a film like, I don't know, Wall Street or something come out, right? Or All the President's Men. And, you'd have basically all of North America kind of focusing discussion for the next little while on the issues that the film raised. And I think this is one of those films, really. I mean, whether it'll happen or not is a different story. Kind of cinema doesn't occupy the role in the culture that it once did. But I think it's designed that way, and it's and it has that importance. It's a state of the nation film, which I'm not sure I've seen the director do before.
No. There are elements that reminded me of Eddington, and when you talk about it being a state of the nation film, we talked about that as at least an attempt at one.
A kind of unsuccessful one, really.
Yeah, we had our issues with Eddington, for sure. And one of the issues you had with Eddington that I wondered whether you would have with this is the kind of mocking of youth. As much as youth is also presented in really good ways here, and young people are fighters and the rest.
I don't think youth is mocked in this film.
I mean, for instance, the mocking of therapy speak and that sort of thing. Like my journey and your invasion. When he's having a go at the guy on the radio because he can't remember his password, and he's just like, "Fucking let me in, I'm Bob," And he's going, "Okay, sir, you're invading my space. This is threatening." Like it's very. I love that kind of comedy because I think it's really fun to mock that kind of thing.
It's very funny, but
it's also very easy, right?
It's very funny, but it's also not coming from a young person. Right, like when you see the guy, he's in his 40s,
eventually,
in his mid-40s.
But it is young person speak.
Perhaps, but in this film, the kids are the future. I mean, kind of very explicitly so in the end scene. Yeah, the revolution continues. The girl goes to the demo, right? Like, which is 3 hours away. Kind of, she's where the hope of the future reside. Right, so and all that you see of that young girl, particularly when she becomes a woman, is as someone who knows her mind, who has her strength, who resists constantly, even when she's in handcuffs, she's constantly resisting. Right, it's kind of, I think, very different to Eddington.
Oh yeah, it has a lot of differences. Don't get me wrong, but I wondered whether that would be something.
No, it wasn't for those reasons. Yeah, because I thought the young people, who you initially think, I mean, that whole thing with Leonardo DiCaprio, kind of, which is, shaking down the young boys who are taking his daughter to the dance, right? Which is a kind of a standard trope in American cinema. It's played for laughs, But I don't think the young men are ever disrespected in that scene, actually.
No.
So I think it has a. I think it has.
Well, the joke is
different...
on Leonardo DiCaprio as much as it's on
Exactly.
anyone.
Yeah. So, whom I really I love in this film. Actually, I love all of the actors. I think, it's going to be interesting to see when awards time comes around, because it's a film with some of the greatest actors in American cinema, all at their best. Yeah, kind of. I'm not saying that this is their best performance or not. I can't keep them all in my head at the same time. Yeah, but certainly each of them is great, I think, in their performance here.
Sean Penn, I think, gives the performance that will most likely stand out to an awards
for sure
committee.
It's the most theatrical, and he's completely out there and funny with it, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
extremely committed, extremely funny. Has a funny walk, which is important. You need a funny walk.
So does Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, yeah, he's got a funny walk, so he might also get an Oscar.
I love the bit. It's such a funny film. It's so full of humor. Yeah, and actually that's what I love about this film, the combination of it being serious about serious things, but also funny with it, funny and loose with it, right? Yeah. So, that whole scene where he's running after the young boys who are meant to save him, and he just can't keep up, and he's huffing and puffing, and he runs with this kind of duck run. Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. He's fantastic in it, really. He's great, and he's generous, because whenever he is with Sean Penn or Benicio del Toro, it's like all the attention is on the others. Yeah, like kind of, particularly with Benicio del Toro, right? And, kind of Leonardo DiCaprio is the star, but he gives away every moment to Benicio del Toro. But all the emotional resonance in the film is really with him. Yeah.
Well, ultimately, it's film about parenting, right? Yeah. This is what it finally comes down to is father and daughter story. And, he's, by the end of the film, he's none the wiser that he's not the biological dad. But basically, it's all a chase just to get my daughter back, right? And then he does. And then he sees that he's kind of done a good job of parenting. It's like, think of the letter from the mother that kind of passes on sort of responsibility, in a sense, or not passes on responsibility. Says, I've always loved you, but I won't be there. And I mean, I don't know if I got an implication or not that he had read the letter. He must have read.
He must have read the letter.
But he didn't just save it for her. I guess he must have read it. But like the way the camera cuts back to him when the letter is talking about him and talking about parenting and seeing her grow up and things. It's like it's really pointed.
It's very moving.
It's like the job that he's done as a dad, because we've seen essentially he's been, once we see them together as she's a 16-year-old and sending her out and everything, he's very paranoid because of his history and because of a couple of decades of drug abuse by this point. And, they don't have the kind of tightest relationship, or at least he's trying to...
I know, I think they do have a tight relationship, actually. And I think in the scene where she's waiting to be taken to the dance, what you see, or what I saw, was, a typical kind of 16-year-old resistance to the parent, right? But all the same, a real bond. She says something, I left you food, you have to put it in this way, but make sure it doesn't go that way, right?
She looks after him. But that's really the thing, is like him what is ultimately kind of resolved for him at the end, internally, is the realization that I have done a good job of this.
Sure.
Which is I imagine is common to every single parent.
Yeah.
Especially when the kid is being a teenager and being resistant and all the rest of it, to find out that actually, I made a success of this. It's lovely, and it's a very nice ending.
Yeah, I thought it had a real payoff, a real emotional payoff, particularly considering those absolutely brilliant moments with the mother, right? Which again, kind of, she's suffering from postpartum depression. She's snappy. She doesn't like that all of Leonardo DiCaprio's attention is now focused on the daughter instead of her. She's resentful and angry and depressed. Yeah, and you understand all of that. It is also kind of part of, popular parlance about, some of the effects of motherhood. Not everybody is cut out to be a mother. Not everybody wants to. Not everybody's maternal, right? And so the letter, has a particular significance in relation to those scenes, right? Because it's an experience of a sense of loss, of longing, of missed opportunities, of what might have been but isn't, right? And an underlying, reassurance that she was loved and the mother thinks about her every day. So, there's that kind of in relation to the letter. And I think that there's that also in relation to what you're describing as like Leonardo DiCaprio thinking, okay, well, I've done a good job. Yeah, kind of, and obviously he remains completely unaware that he is not his daughter's biological father as far as we know. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's very moving. So for me, it's a film that on first look has everything, right? A serious film about a serious issue that is laugh out loud funny throughout, right? That is beautiful to look at, that moves incredibly well, that has kind of gorgeous music, and it's a critique of society, and at the same time, it's, very emotional. Yeah, it kind of is moving, right?
Yeah.
Or it was for me. Right, so
I did find it moving at the end. Yeah, because it ultimately always has to come down to that relationship, and that's ultimately what it does. I liked in the credits that so many of the companies, as it were, of actors, the groups of characters, were identified as such. So, like, 'cause you very often in a film you'll get just credits as a list of characters, and then you might get, for instance, like the pirates, and it will say the pirates, and then you'll get a list of everyone who played the pirates.
Yeah.
And here it does that, but it does it with like 4 or 5 different groups. You've got like the Christmas Adventurers Club, which is the secret society. You've got the skateboarders. You've got the French 75. You've got Benicio del Toro's community. Yeah, and they're all given. So you might not still like identify which one is which, but I like that there's kind of. It feels like an additional level of respect and reverence towards the actors, that these are the ones who played these guys. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, I did too. And one of the things, just to highlight or maybe clarify, but in relation to this Christmas Adventurers Club, I had a real sense, though it wasn't explicitly stated, that Tony Goldwyn was the president of the United States in the film. Yeah.
Oh, right, you think that's an implication?
I think that is the implication, partly through the casting of Tony Goldwyn, who of course played the President of the United States in 7 seasons of Scandal, which was a huge hit. It's a Shonda Rhimes series.
Right.
So partly through that casting, and partly also, through those bits of dialogue, you have to come the back way. We're having a reception for my daughter, and yet there's all these official rooms, right? So the implication for me is that the head of the Christmas Adventurers Club is the President of the United States, who is leading this white supremacist authoritarian regime. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's interesting. I mean, I thought the leader of the club was the really, really, really old guy who looked a bit like Jimmy Carter and wouldn't speak. And they kind of spoke for him, because when he spoke, it was like a moment that he spoke up.
Yes, I wondered who that actor was, because he's so recognizable, but I couldn't find his name.
They reminded me, that whole thing. I wonder if the name is there was a South Park episode where they'd done an episode about Scientology, and it had been controversial because they'd also basically said Tom Cruise is gay in this episode, and that was the whole thing. And Isaac Hayes, who played Chef in South Park, ended up leaving essentially over that episode. And so they did another episode where Chef leaves South Park, and the idea is that he's had his brain scrambled by a fruity little club, the Super Adventure Club, I think it's called. And they reminded me very much of that, and I wondered whether the name and the kind of the sort of slight absurdity around that was based on, or a reference to that somehow. It really made me...
It's possible, because the film is very playful with pop culture. What's your name?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of Steve Parker.
Peter Parker.
Peter Parker. So, the film is full of all of these references to pop culture as a way of understanding things. So that's quite possible. Another point, just whilst I'm thinking of this, one of the interesting things for me to look at is that Tony Goldwyn and Sean Penn are the same age.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, they're both 65 years old. I mean, I first saw Tony Goldwyn in Ghost, I think, which was 1990, right? And I think they're exactly the same age. I think they're both 65 years old. But their faces, and obviously they're both very fit, but their faces couldn't be more different, right? Like kind of, clearly Sean Penn has had no work done whatsoever. Yeah, he's got wrinkles all over the place, the neck, the eyebrow, everything. Yeah. Whereas, kind of Tony Goldwyn looks like a movie star, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought kind of, that was an interesting, though on a different topic, how stars age, how stars let themselves age, right, and so on. But I thought it was kind of worth remarking on, that they're exactly the same age.
Well, one thing you also notice, I think, about short, so certainly I did, is his arms.
Yes.
You know, when he's sat in that church waiting for the paternity test, he sits there and his arms are huge, and
He's super fit.
and thick veins through them. Like the film is shouting kind of masculinity at you through that.
Sure.
And then and very consciously so, because then she picks up on why is his shirt so tight, and she starts mocking him for his expression of masculinity.
Sure.
You know, the way he does it.
The film is super clever that way. And that in itself is, I think, another interesting thing, right? Like, you know, the combination of that super fit, super muscularized body, you know, and that face that looks like one step from the grave, really.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the Christmas Adventurers Club because I liked, like, the whole film has absurdity, you know, just kind of bubbling under all the time. But the absurdity that's going on in the kind of revolutionary side is kind of particularly invited by Leonardo DiCaprio, who just kind of, he lives a kind of absurd life, especially when stuff kicks off and he has to go on the run. Like he is he's quite a chaotic person.
Yes.
And so
a fumbling person.
Right. So absurdity is kind of invited in by him, but the Christmas Club is just pure, like, an absurd construct from the start. Like, the idea of a secret society, fine, there are secret societies, I'm sure, and they probably look a lot like this. But, you know, that it's based on Christmas, and that the secret knock is Jingle Bells, and that they hail Saint Nick as opposed to hail Satan, you know.
Yes.
Like, I loved how that was just, like, orchestrated absurdity for us, you know.
Well, you know, what I found interesting about that is what you say, but also in relation to its clear-cut white supremacy that I've rarely seen spoken as clearly in an American film. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Well, that's it. That whole dialogue, you know, that you sleep with a black woman. If you had any relations with a black woman, you can't be in this club, right? And kind of, it couldn't be more clearer. So on the one hand, there's the absurdity, there's the white Christmas and Jingle Bells and white picket fence Americana, but also that it's so absurdly white supremacist and so very deadly with it.
Well, it's actually quite bold, thinking about it, that it uses Christmas as a signal of white supremacy. Which it really does.
Because of this Christian right-wing...
Right, it's Christian right stuff.
Yeah.
So even though Christmas is, like, you know, it's worldwide and it's a season of giving and you don't have to be Christian to enjoy Christmas and all the rest of it, this is like a really waspy group, right? And this signifies something about them and about the world that they want. The fact that they will build or signify everything about them through idolising Christmas and Saint Nick. It makes Christmas threatening, you know.
Well, and not only that, but if you remember, at the end of the film, spoilers, the Sean Penn character gets gassed, right? And then he not only gets gassed, but he gets put in an oven,
incinerated,
right?
Yeah.
And I think that brings up all other kind of Aryan white supremacist kind of things that you attach to this particular white Christmas group, right? So the film is full of elements like those that make it like so rich and give it depth, really. So on the one hand, the absurdism of the group, it is kind of absurd. But on the other hand, kind of the deadliness of it, and also the laying out of resonances with so many aspects of authoritarian cultures of the last century.
There was one niggle I had with the Christmas group, which was just that I didn't know why they sent the guy to kill Sean Penn, or at least, you know, because
they found out he had a relation with...
but the thing is, so when they kill him at the end, I was like, okay, some shit's happened, the easiest thing to do is just get rid of him and be done. I get that. But when they send the guy to kill him, and it's all done through coded language, right? It's euphemism. It's, you know, I want the floor so clean you could eat off it, is what they say, you know, clean up. I kind of thought, like, once they found out that he's had this relationship with a black woman and that he's had a kid, I thought the implication was, if they kill the kid, it can still go on. Because otherwise, why do they still care about the guy? Like, they can just go, okay, well, you're no longer invited to our club. Why do they have to kill him? Like, it made no sense to me. You kill him after it's all gone haywire and you go, okay, just clean up now. But I didn't get why they wanted to kill him straight away. I don't know why he said...
Well, because he's no longer reliable. He lied, you know.
Nah.
I didn't have any problems with that at all.
I wanted that to be more...
I think what is more interesting is that the Sean Penn character is willing to give up his daughter to a group that will basically pimp her out, for money and for other things, and he's willing to kind of, let a daughter of his go through that rather than him sacrifice his belonging to this group.
Yeah. Which ultimately goes to that theme of parenting. A good parent doesn't do that.
Anyway, I think it's a truly, truly great film. My first impression is that it's really, really great, and that everyone should see it, and that I hope people kind of discuss it. And I'm sure, actually, that in reading, the articles that are bound to come out about this, kind of the film will become richer and point out to things that maybe we've missed out, really.
I'm sure there's a lot of it. Good.
All right.
Yeah, I had a good time.
It's a great, great film. Go see it.
It's a good film. Go see it.
It's a great film. I think one of the very best films that I've seen in a really long time. So, on that note, thank you very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social. Blue Sky, where the revolution happens. And the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.